Home Folks, Visit 22, featuring Ben Johnson. Made possible in part by Finders Keepers Thrift Shop in Melbourne. Throughout the month of August, hosting a food drive for the Manor House in Melbourne. Please bring by non-perishable food items like peanut butter, canned vegetables, ramen noodles, and pasta. Bring those donations by Finders Keepers, 1195 Main Street in Melbourne during regular business hours. Bring in 5 items and receive a Finders Keepers discount. Let's fill that food pantry at the Manor House full with the help of Finders Keepers Thrift Shop in Melbourne. This is Home Folks. I'm Ken Loggins. Thank you so much for being here at the YouTube channel, Ken Loggins Online. That's Ken Loggins Online on YouTube. If you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. Please subscribe. It's absolutely free to do so. And also next time you're on Facebook, by all means, please follow the Ken Loggins Online, KLO for short, Facebook page. We appreciate it when you do that. Home Folks, the place where we share stories, we talk about memories, and hopefully in the process preserve these memories online for future generations. And I always love to talk radio. I can talk radio all day. Now, this guy doesn't have all day to talk radio with me. He's a busy guy. Mr. Ben Johnson, a Hall of Famer. Now, Ben Johnson joining us here as of last year. We'll get into more of that as we go along. But, Ben, thank you so much for taking the time today. I'm looking forward to the visit.
Well, Ken, thank you for coming on by and hollering at me. I'm looking forward to this, too. I don't know where I'm going to go.
So we'll just go wherever it does take us. First of all, thank you for the use of your state-of-the-art facilities here on campus at Caveman Radio. You're hosting me today, and I appreciate that a whole bunch. It's top-notch, as people have expected it to be here at Cave City.
Yeah, this facility's been here since 2007, and it has been used by numerous students over the years, and it's still in great shape. They've all taken care of everything.
I like to start out these visits with a question that's maybe the toughest question you're going to get.
Oh.
Here's the good part. You don't have to answer it until we wrap up.
Oh, okay. I get to think about it.
You can kind of think about it as we go along. If there's one moment in your radio career that you could go back in time and do over again, either just reliving it or maybe changing it a little bit, think about what that particular moment might be.
Just one?
Well, we'll stew on that for a little while, and we'll backtrack to it as we go along. But let's rewind and start from the very beginning, Ben Johnson. Tell me when and where you were born.
I was born in St. Joseph, Michigan, in a little house I helped my father build. Yeah, but it was St. Joseph, Michigan in 1964, back when everything was still black and white.
Okay,
yeah.
64 in St. Joseph, Michigan.
Right.
Tell me a bit about your parents.
Oh, goodness gracious. Both were hardworking folks. Dad was a factory worker. Mom worked in a couple of different factories. They were young kids at 20. And then I popped up.
Okay. Yep. Now, siblings. Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have a brother and 3 sisters.
Okay. Tell us about them.
Well, my brother is a general laborer. I've got a sister that works in a factory. One's a homemaker, and the other one, she does all sorts of neat little odd jobs around the area. They all have children, and some even have grandkids. I mean, they're making me feel old, and I'm the oldest of the bunch.
Well, how long would you be in Michigan before you were in Arkansas?
Oh, let's see here. My folks decided to have a couple of more siblings for me before we decided to move to Arkansas, and we moved down here, and I was 7, I believe it was.
Okay.
Yeah, going into the 2nd grade.
So that would have been heading into the decade of the 70s, around that time. Your grandparents on either side, do you have memories of grandparents?
Oh, yeah. My grandfather, whom I'm named after, was my mother's dad, and my grandma, the Mortzes, from Benton Harbor. My grandparents on my dad's side were from Arkansas, And I didn't see them very much at all because we at that time lived in Michigan. It wasn't until I come to Arkansas that got to be around the Johnsons that much. But, everybody was just absolutely wonderful, idyllic grandparents. My grandfather, unfortunately, had a heart attack when I was about, I think it was 9, and he passed away. So I didn't get to know him, as much as I'd like to have. But, that's part of life, I guess.
So you have family ties to the local Johnsons, do you?
Yeah, my family originated in the Johnsons out of Izard County.
Yeah.
So Mount Pleasant, in and around there, that's where my dad's family's from.
Okay. What else do you remember about, other than probably it being very cold, what do you remember in Michigan about your earliest years?
A different world back then. We lived 2 blocks from my school, Seeley McCord Elementary. And I remember of a morning getting ready for school, and they shagged me out the door, 5 years old, and I walked to school by myself, a couple of blocks, crossed the street, had a crossing guard, and then boom, you were right on the school campus every day, back and forth. Walking to school and to home every day, 5 years old. Could you imagine letting a 5-year-old do that now?
You're here to tell us about it.
And I'm here to tell
now.
you. I lived through it all.
Exactly.
I remember walking to school in the wintertime. You don't get out of school in Michigan just because it snows. I remember walking to school, and the snow was deep as I was tall. I could walk along and run my hand, along the top of the snow as we, because they cleared the streets and everything out pretty good up there. They got that down to a science. You didn't get to miss school. You went. And I walked in the snow with my little rubber boots on over my shoes and my coat and everything, and toting my lunch and, back and forth. It was always fun looking at a giant wall of snow, pretending I was in a fort on the way I was going to school.
Do you have any teachers that you remember in Michigan?
Yeah, my kindergarten teacher, Miss Davis. She was absolute delight. She unfortunately for me, she publicly declared me as the class pet in kindergarten. So that caused me some trouble. I gained the ire of a lot of kindergartners and some very, very stern third graders, I might add.
Okay, yeah. All right. You didn't encounter any of them on those walks back and forth to school,
did you? Yeah. Time or two in the playground as well too.
And you're here to tell us about it.
And I'm here to tell you about it.
Okay.
It was just a few knockdowns, a black eye here or there. It was, nothing super serious.
So what would bring the family to Arkansas? To be closer to family roots or economic reasons?
It gets to be a little serious where that's concerned.
Sure.
The neighborhood that we lived in was not exactly, even though they let a 5-year-old walk to school every day, it wasn't exactly a really shall we say, loving neighborhood. There were some folks there that just couldn't get along with each other, right? Mm-hmm. And we had some trouble in the neighborhood. And so instead of moving me off to Bel Air, we just all moved to Arkansas to get away from all the problems that we were having there in the neighborhood, and knew that Arkansas would be a lot safer, a lot easier to get along with, and boom. There we are.
Now,
we moved to Batesville and stayed there until got a house in Deshay. And I started going to school at Deshay in 2nd grade.
Really? I did not realize that. I just assumed you'd started over in this part of the county.
No.
But you started at Deshay.
Yeah, I went to school in Deshay for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades.
Really?
Yeah.
Memories of school there, favorite teachers, subjects, friends you ran with.
Oh, Danny Tipton was one of my big friends over there. He's got a gospel group now, the Tipton family. And, it was really funny. Danny came over during our 5th grade from Cave City. And we shared 5th grade together. And then I moved to Cave City from Deshay, so we always called it the big trade. Cave City got me, but they lost him, and Deshay got him, but they lost me. So
the blockbuster.
It was a blockbuster trade, yeah.
Hey, we're visiting with Ben Johnson on this very special edition of Home Folks, longtime local radio broadcaster, longtime educator now here with the Cave City School District. And I want to thank our Home Folks partners while we have a chance, people like, the folks you'll find at Almost Heaven Flea Market, 85 East Main in Melbourne. They're in the Old Marks Furniture Building in the old Miller's location for old-timers like me. If you love vintage items, antiquing, if you're a collector or treasure hunter, it's a place to be. Almost Heaven Flea Market. Come by and browse soon. Also, Shane and the crew at Townsend Spice and Supply, 725 East Main in Melbourne, since 1978. Here for you when it comes to custom spice blends, herbs, and seasonings. It's Townsend Spice and Supply. it's hard to pinpoint this for me as a radio guy, but at what point do you become fascinated by what you hear on the radio?
Well, like most youngins, music hits you at whatever age it hits you. And I was the proud owner of a little square black transistor radio. Mm-hmm. And I was fascinated by all the programs that I could catch late at night. I would stay up too late. Now kids do it with their cell phones, but
sure.
I did it with an AM transistor. And I would stay up late and listen to radio stations across the country, as far away as I could get them. And it was always fun to listen in to all the stuff that was going on, the silliness that would happen with late night radio. I mean, you got to, these people seemed to have a whole lot of fun, and
sure.
they played great music all over the place. So,
did you have certain stations that you always landed on that were your favorites,
yeah.
or was it just a crapshoot every night?
Well, I would always hunt up WLS out of Chicago, WJJD out of Chicago. There was WLW, KWKH. I mean, WSM. I used to listen to the Grand Ole Opry on Friday and Saturday nights, but especially Saturday nights. It was regular. I'd sit down and just listen because it was just so fascinating to me to get to hear live concerts on the radio, and a lot of times get to hear people that I really enjoyed listening to because I was a big country music fan.
Okay, now that's kind of rare being a youngster, being that big in the country, as, of course, rock and roll was all the rage in the late 60s, early 70s, but you were a bit more into the country thing.
Well, it was probably the direct influence of my father, who only allowed two kinds of music in the house, country and Western. And that was it. The only exception was Elvis.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good exception.
Yeah, it was probably the best. It just seemed like the guys and the gals that were doing all the talking, I mean, they seemed to be having fun, taking phone calls, giving away prizes, getting to play their favorite music. That just always seemed kind of fun to me. But I never thought about doing it as a profession. I just thought of it as, hey, that sounds cool, Mm-hmm. And we moved to Cave City, and gosh, I was having a tough time through high school trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. My father kept trying to direct me to go into the military. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm not a military type guy. I mean, if it came to where they needed me for some reason, I wouldn't hesitate to join because I'm, patriotic. I love my country. But if I didn't have to do it, then
sure.
I would rather have another option. Wanted to go to college. Dad was not big on college at all. He just, as I could quote him saying, I know people with college degrees that are ditch diggers, so he didn't see the value in going to college, so he offered me absolutely no help in going to college. And through a series of mistakes at the school, I was unable to get my application and everything processed and take the ACT test.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here going, what am I going to do? I'm just going to have to wait till after my senior year. But then I found out that Cave City, the board here, was working on putting in a radio station. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, how cool. That'd be great, And so sure enough, the school was working on getting a radio station installed just in time for my senior year.
So this would have been 80, 81, 82.
Mm-hmm. Radio station here at the high school went on the air in 80, December of 1980.
Okay.
And it was the spring of 81. A lot of volunteers and certain students got to help. I didn't show up in time to get registered for that spring semester that they did. They got filled up. So I was, I missed out. But then they had an open registration at the end of the school year in the late spring of 81 that, hey, we're going to take some kids. Next year is going to be a full year class. It'll be an accredited class. And if you want it, come sign up. And so I signed up. I was one of the first ones to get signed on for the class. So my senior year in high school was the first full year as a class for what was known then as KZIG radio.
Okay.
So I got to do radio my senior year in high school.
Well, talk a bit about how that looked or how it sounded. Typical things you would do. I mean, you were already doing ball games, I guess? The
ball games were all done by local folks who had some experience at doing it. They didn't have the high school kids.
They didn't cut y'all loose.
No,
not quite yet.
But they did cut us loose as far as just being personalities on the air.
Sure.
We had all grown up listening to the radio, and all of us that were in the class had our favorite on-air personalities, and we knew who we might want to emulate, who we might want to try to, pattern a particular radio program after. And there was no automation then. Everything was all done live. We were playing records. We were playing tapes. We were playing reel-to-reel. Lum and Abner on reel-to-reel was the opening part of my afternoon class show. I love Lum and Abner.
Mm-hmm.
we all would get on the radio and try to have fun with it. Just try to sound like the people that we've always heard on the radio before. Unlike today, you got a lot of kids who they don't get to hear a whole lot of people being personalities on the radio anymore. Exactly. And so they don't have that pattern to follow. So it takes a lot of coaching to get them to loosen up just to smile on the radio.
Sure.
But, I was a big fan of John Landecker, John Records Landecker. Records really is my middle name, WLS. And I wanted to do something like that. I was nowhere near John Records Landecker, but I tried.
Yeah.
And some other friends of mine and we had some other favorites and stuff that we liked to listen to. And we would use some of their ideas and have fun with it on the radio and just try to entertain.
Who at the time, during that year, that senior year, who was your advisor here at the station, kind of filling the shoes that you're taking care of now for these kids?
Pat Sullins.
Okay.
Pat Sullins was our radio teacher, and he was really funny. He always had nicknames for everybody, and whenever you do something, he asks you to do something, you say, okay, I'll handle that. He go, well, I thank you, and my mama thanks you. Just silly stuff like that all the time. He was a heck of a leader there, especially for your senior year. He helped me get my first job in commercial radio after I graduated.
Which was?
KHAM in Horseshoe Bend. That station doesn't exist anymore.
KHAM Radio. Remember
Gene
it well.
Williams. Yeah.
And I was 7th, 8th grade around the time you were a senior. It was a really exciting time as far as local radio.
Oh, yeah.
KHAM going on air. Then all of a sudden you had this behemoth signal known as KWOZ.
Mm-hmm.
It hits the air.
Yeah.
A year or so later, you have KZLE on the air in 82. For a while, you have a tough time figuring out which you wanted to listen to because you hadn't had any of those options in the late 70s.
It was a wide open frontier, but then at the same time, there were just so many possibilities. You had all sorts of opportunities. And they were open to hiring people that just had the high school experience like I did. They were open to hiring, bringing you in, and just sort of kind of letting you grow, And that worked out really well for me.
Certainly. Chatting with Ben Johnson here on this edition of Home Folks. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. We're brought your way in part by Mike Watson State Farm Insurance with offices in Highland and Melbourne, everywhere online as well at talktomikewatson.com. That's talktomikewatson.com. Also, thank you to Sonia Hames-Wiles Family Dentistry on the south side of the square in Melbourne. For your next appointment, 870-368-6666. A very special guest on this edition of Home Folks, longtime radio personality and longtime educator now at the Cave City School District, Mr. Ben Johnson. Talk a bit about what you think of when you think of the KHAM days.
It was probably the longest 3 months of my life.
And if you've ever been in radio, you've all been there, those gigs early in your career.
You're paying your dues.
Sometimes you get some of your best stories you'll get in your career out of those first gigs.
Yep.
3 months at KHAM.
Ooh, 3 months, the summer of 82. Oh, my goodness gracious me. And I'd gone to Pat Sullins after I graduated and said, hey, my dad's pressuring me to get a job. I'd like to get a job in radio. And because I was kind of hoping to work over the summer to try to get to college. And Pat said, well, I got a friend who got a radio station up in Horseshoe Bend, and he could use some people. I'll call him. So I didn't know Gene Williams from, Adam's House Cat. And I loaded up and went to Horseshoe Bend and got the job. And I'm sitting here thinking, all right. And he puts me on the afternoon slot. Now, that was a daytime AM station, so afternoon slot sounds great until you get into the fall and the winter when the station signs off at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But nonetheless, I had the afternoon slot. And he had a very rigid playlist. He had a very rigid hourly schedule and how he wanted everything done. I mean, he was pretty tight about all the stuff that he wanted and how it had to happen and by the timing and everything. And so it taught me, a little bit of discipline there. Worked with a fellow by the name of Mark Stull. He went on over to Jonesboro, became Mike Steele. He was super fun to learn from. Wasn't there for very long while I was there, but he was there for a couple of months. And it was a wild experience, and getting to to work around Mr. Williams was definitely interesting.
Quite an experience,
He
I would imagine.
was quite an experience. He sure was. He was out there, boy. Let me tell you, at times, and you're just kind of like going, I don't understand. And that was just, he had his world and his way of doing things.
Only one Gene Williams, that's for sure.
Only one. Broke the mold.
3 months at Caham. So where do you go after that?
I had that afternoon shift, but unfortunately, it's working a lot of times only 3-4 hours at the most, and I'm driving from Sidney, Arkansas, where we lived, all the way to Horseshoe Bend in a 1976 F-150 four-wheel drive, which drank gas.
Sure.
Big time, which basically took my whole paycheck. And it was becoming way too expensive to do the trip because gas was now passing the $1 a gallon mark, and I just couldn't afford that. Mm-hmm. And so I was sitting here really struggling with, my father on one hand going, "You're wearing my truck out for nothing," and then the other thing going, I don't even have $1 or $2 left after I tank up this old truck, to go back and forth. So what am I going to do? I need to try to find a new job. Well, we didn't have a phone because my father was notoriously cheap. And so I get a notice from one of our next door neighbors that a guy by the name of Gary Bridgman had called them and wanted to talk to me about a job. Mm-hmm. I didn't even have an application in anywhere else. So I didn't know Gary from Adam's House Cat again. And so I'm sitting here going, okay, that sounds like it's a possibility. So I went over to our neighbor's, Mr. Wells's house, and called down to the radio station in Batesville to talk to Gary Bridgman. And Gary said, I've heard good things about you. We'd be interested in hiring you if you want to come down and apply for a job. Okay. Well, one of the guys that I had gone to school with, Bob Connell. Mm-hmm. Bob was a year behind me. Bob had gone to work for Mr. Bridgman there in Batesville at that KWOZ that you mentioned. He went down there, and they had another young lady that was in my radio class working for them part-time, Valerie Breckenridge. Valerie was getting ready to go to college, and so they were needing somebody. So Bob and Valerie told Gary, said, "Hey, you need to hire him." So I went down, interviewed, got the job. So in late August of '82, that's when I started working at KWOZ out of the Batesville studio.
Yeah, and that studio was on the other side of the river at the time, wasn't it?
Yep, right there at the bottom of Ramsey Mountain. Yep.
Okay. Was this post or pre-flood of '82?
This was just before the flood of '82 because I started working there in August, and then the flood was, December?
Timing is everything.
Oh,
isn't it?
was. I, along with a gentleman by the name of Donald Palmer, were trapped at the radio station that night because of the flood. We were there when they shut down the bridge.
Yeah.
And that flood came up, and we lived on the other side of the bridge. And so Gary came to us and said, "Guys, I hope y'all are planning on staying the night because it looks like you're here." "Yes, sir, we're here." So we stayed the whole night. We got in lawn chairs and sat out there in the parking lot and watched them pick up trees from one side of the bridge and drop it off on the other so it get washed down because it got up to that bridge where they said it never would, but it did. And we watched a backhoe sitting out there picking up trees and dropping them off on the other side. Just, how far do you think they're going to take this one? We were just sitting there drinking a soda pop and just watching what's going on.
Wow.
I remember we were on air getting phone calls from people letting us know that water's up to here, water's up to there, and we would relay that on the air. And I remember Ed Ward called me one hour, and he said, "Hey, there's a cow down here surrounded by water." He said, "Somebody might want to come down here and rescue that cow." So we got on the air and said, "Hey, this cow, whatever field it was, surrounded by water, and they're saying if you want to rescue your cow, you better come get it." Well, as soon as I got off the mic, the phone rang again. And it was Ed. He said, "Never mind."
So y'all go on air and say, "Never mind."
Yeah, Ed said, "Never mind." Just never mind. Don't worry about it now. So it's a sad end for the cow for sure.
Much more with the one, the only Ben Johnson on the way when home folks visit 22 continues. Right now, though, I want to remind you home folks would not be possible without the support of fantastic partners like Bill Davis Trucking and Bray Fast Freight, specializing in state-of-the-art temperature-controlled secure transport. Online at BillDavisTrucking.com and also at BrayFastFreightLLC.com. Always on the lookout for good, dependable, certified team drivers. It's Bill Davis Trucking and Bray Fast Freight. Also, thanks to Izard County Heating and Cooling, your Ohio elite dealer. Online at izardcountyhvac.com or call 870-291-0576. Your local HVAC repair experts, Izard County Heating and Cooling. Also, thank you to Roxanne, Cody, and everyone at United Country Ozark Realty. With proven results when it comes to buying or selling, you can trust their award-winning team to give you the expert guidance every step of the way in the real estate process. Call 870-368-4155 and also online at ozarkrealtyinc.com. How about some more stories from the one, the only Ben Johnson here on Home Folks Visit 22. How long would you end up working with Gary at KWOZ? Because a lot of people, when they hear the name Ben Johnson, they think of that morning show. They think of Ben and Gary B.
I started working there in August of 82, and what was it? I think about 3 or 4 years later, when Steve Stafford, who did the morning shows back then, Steve moved on, and then they automatically put me in his place, and I think it was 86, 85, 86, something like that, when Steve moved on, and I took over the morning show then, and I did that all the way until, I think it was July of 2005. So I was there for 172 years. So
that's a lot of school closings.
That's a lot of school closings.
Way before the internet, the good old days, quote unquote, of radio, when you would go in and have the phone line ringing off the hook. When there was snow on the ground or on the roadway, you were still expected to come to work.
Yes, sir, you were.
Driving from Cave City or wherever, or from, in my case, from Mount Pleasant or Melbourne or whatever. And then you get to work and you get to field all the "Are we having school?" phone calls. And,
call after call after call after call. The phone actually stayed lit. As soon as you hang up, it'd start ringing again.
Didn't get your school closings online or on your phone or anything. You got them off the radio.
You could announce them on the air, go through that whole list of 20 area schools that are closed. As soon as you turn the mic off, the phone's ringing. Is my school closed?
Aren't you listening?
I just said it on the radio.
Visiting with Hall of Famer Ben Johnson on this edition of Home Folks. Thank you so much for being a part of this visit, and thank you so much to our Home Folks partners, Sharp County Outdoors, 587 Highway 62 West in Ash Flat. They are your go-to, Joy and Hazel, for sales and service of used tractors, equipment, ATVs, UTVs, as well. Also, thank you to Triple M Discount, Miller Poultry and Cattle, Silk Flowers, Cemetery Arrangements, Hardware, Tools, Home Decor, Fresh Eggs, Locally Raised Beef, 2412 East Main in Melbourne. Ben Johnson, our special guest, talking about the KWOZ days.
When I first started there, all we did was weathers. Myself and Bob Connell, we would babysit the computer automation that they had and record weathers. We didn't really get to be on the air that much at first. And so we were both assigned traffic. Now, back then, you didn't have computers doing the radio station logs. They had to be filled out by hand. 24 hours, 5 breaks an hour. You had a log book, and you had to go through each client one at a time by page, and you had to see how many spots they were going to run a day, and then you had to hand write out where that spot was going to be in different hours throughout the day until you filled the logs up. And election seasons were horrible.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
They were terrible. But we did the logs there for about a year or so, just, taking care of both AM and FM stations there, KAAB and KWOZ. And we just wore our little hands out writing. But fortunately, coming out of high school, we had some writing experience.
Yeah, and you learned the business that way.
Yes, you did. You sure did.
When it's nuts and bolts like that, you figure out where that paycheck comes from.
We also got drafted in helping clean the station, so we got the custodian treatment. We got to do a little bit of everything. Gary Bridgman was a great first boss to have when it came to working that, because early on in my career, we learned the traffic, like I said. Well, I'm a little bit of a slow learner at times, and all that traffic business sort of kind of got to be it got to be real pain to do. I just got to where I hated it, but I had to come in every day and do it. And there were some times that your mind would wander, and you'd make a mistake or 2 or 3. And there was a couple of times that I made some pretty faulty mistakes on those logs. And Gary probably had every right in the world to boot me out the door, but he didn't. He would actually set me down and counsel with me and try to get me, back on the right track. And I know I tested his patience a couple of times, but, he let me stick around and just kind of work my way through it. And then fortunately, the Lord saw fit to get us computers. So the computers came in and they could do in, 30 seconds what it took us hours to get done. So we were like, thank you, Lord.
Now, you talked about you and Bob kind of babysitting the automation. Were these the carousel machines?
Yeah, they were the old carousel machines.
You had these little, they called them carts back in the day, that would have your commercials and in some cases songs or whatever you had on these carts, kind of like 8-track tapes. If you don't know what it is, Google it, 8-track tapes. You would stick these carts in the machines, line them up, fire them off, or in some cases you had these carousel machines, which never ever made an error, by the way. They were always worked perfectly.
Yeah, sure did.
Cutting edge technology. And you'd actually program this carousel machine to put in the right carts at the right time.
You would play a tape, back it out, move around, load another tape, play it, back it out, move it around, just like a carousel would operate.
And we thought that was so high tech.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were just, this is amazing. Look at this. Bring people over. Come here and look at this. Watch this do that.
If you think what's on the air is entertaining, what happens off the air in radio, I mean, you can't even imagine.
You ever watch WKRP in Cincinnati? There it is.
The gags at WKRP, it's not much of an exaggeration, if any at all. That's how it is, Yep. People would talk about, well, what's radio really like? I would say WKRP pretty much nails it. You
watch it. It's right there. People that wrote that show had to have worked radio at some time in their life. I remember one time, this was mid-'80s, we had to run the Razorback football games on KWOZ, and we had to run live programming on KAAB on Saturday. And so Bob Connell and I had to go in, and Bob would work one station, I would work the other. We would swap off who got to do the live DJ show on the AM and who got to run the football game every other week. Now, whoever didn't have to run the football game had to go to Dairy Queen to buy the lunch for that day.
Of course.
And they had this special at Dairy Queen in Batesville back then where you got these 2 drinks, 2 burgers, 2 fries, and 2 sundaes, and it was $5. Imagine that now. And so this was my particular Saturday to have to go buy lunch. If you ran the live show, you got to buy lunch. The other guy had to run football game. So I go to get the lunch, and I come back. Now, when I come back, I'm bringing the food in, open up the front door to the radio station, and there, laying on the floor, is this just absolutely stunning young woman in a dress, perfect dark hair and everything. She's laying flat on her back. She's got Bob's pillow under her head, and Bob is on one knee over her, waving his hands in her face. And I'm just like, holy moly, what's going on here? What did I walk in on? And I said, what's up, Bob? Bob said, Ben. He said, meet Sissy. So I'm thinking, oh, it's his sister. She's got dark hair. He's got dark hair. I said, oh, really? Hey, Sissy, how you doing? No, Ben. He said, you don't understand. She's passed out. Right, Bob, you bet. So I just walked past him, and I went into the kitchen to set our lunch up on the countertop. He goes, no, Ben, I don't know what to do. She just walked in. I heard somebody say, help, and she's passed out laying here on the floor. And he said, I don't know how to help Sissy. I said, well, Bob, I just bought a brand new set of jumper cables. I could hook her up to the truck. I'm serious, Ben. And I was like, right. Well, I walked over there, and sure enough, she wasn't moving.
He wasn't bluffing. Okay.
It turns out he was not bluffing at all.
Wow.
So, and I really figured it out when he told me. He said, she told me to call this Joe Hart. And he said, I don't know who he is. I said, that's not he. That's a local lawyer, and it's a woman. So I said, we better call. So we called. They were friends. She had a medical condition. She came over with a doctor friend of hers, a nurse from the hospital, and they helped get her, straightened back up. They said, hey, we don't want to take her head off this pillow. Can we take the pillow with us? And Bob said, sure, it was his. Bob used to work a couple of 3 different jobs, and he kept a pillow and blanket in his car so that if he got too tired, he'd just go to sleep in his car.
Crash, yeah.
And so he let her have the pillow, and they left. And, oh, my gosh, he couldn't believe. Jumper cables, that was a thing he gigged me on for quite some time. And so that following Monday when I was at work, again, Bob worked the later shift, I worked the early one, and I heard the front door knock, and I went and answered the front door, and it was the girl. And I said, well, hi, I think I seen you from somewhere. She said, oh, she had the pillow. She said, thank you so much. You guys helped me so much. She said, are you the one that this pillow belongs to? I said, no, that belongs to Bob. I said, he'll be here later. She said, well, I can't stick around. I've got a job appointment I've got to go to. She said, but I tell you what, she gives me a hug and she kisses me on the cheek and she said, that's for Bob. Tell him thank you for the pillow. And then she leaves. And I mean, she was absolutely beautiful young woman. So at that time I was like 18. Mm-hmm. I'm just sitting there going, So when Bob comes in, I decide to leave the lipstick print on my face. Mm-hmm. And I say, Bob, see this? He goes, yeah, where'd that come from? And I told him. Oh, he was so mad. That was my pillow. She should, I mean, he just, so he gigged me about the jumper cable thing, but I went, hey, Bob, and I'd point to my cheek and go, guess what? It was your pillow, but I got the kiss. Yeah.
Back in the day, back in that era, on location remotes. Mm-hmm. Back then, the radio DJ was a rock star.
Yep.
And you never really, in some cases, didn't even know what they looked like,
right,
because it was before the internet. So that was an event if the guy you heard on the radio every day was going to be at the grocery store or wherever on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
So the crowds you would draw for those live events. And I know every radio guy has his favorite on-location remote story, maybe 2 or 3 in some cases. Does anything pop into your head?
Well, there's always 2 or 3 or 4. Like you said, you'd be doing a remote broadcast and somebody'd come in and go, hey, where is that Ben Johnson? I want to meet him. I hear him all the time. Put a face with the, and then that's when they'd find out that I have a face for radio. I didn't go into movies and TV for a reason. So, but one of my favorites, I believe the word husky has been used a time or two in reference to me. And I'm at a remote location. I want to think it was the old Western Trails store in Pleasant Plains, if I remember correctly. We used to have this trailer that we'd take, a long, big old white trailer, and served Pepsi drinks out of it, and we'd cook up hot dogs and hand out prizes. We got to be the host and the soda jerk and the cook and, the greeter. I mean, you just 20,000 different jobs to do. And so I hear this guy come walking up, big old cowboy hat and boots, and he goes, I want to meet that Ben Johnson. I listen to him all the time. And so he walks up and he goes, which one of y'all's Ben? I said, well, I'm Ben. Stuck my hand out to shake his hand. And he pulled his hand back and looked at me like, I was made of, horse poo or something. And he goes, and I quote, I didn't know you was fat. That's what he said. And I said, well, I'm sorry if that offends you. He said, not really. Could you give me a hat?
Sure.
I said, after you say that, you want me to give you a hat? I threw him a hat at his head, but I threw him a hat.
I was waiting on that. Chatting with Ben Johnson on this edition of Home Folks. We're talking radio stories right now. Funniest on-air moments, either intentionally or unintentionally, that you can think of.
When I first started, of course, I was by myself on air. And then there was a young lady that worked the AM station for a while. Bob Connell, whom I'd mentioned before, actually working there at KWOZ, KAAB. They kind of put him in charge of the AM KAAB. And Bob had this young lady that would come in and do his morning shows named Karen Pierce. Absolutely adorable human being. And she was adorable because she liked me. She thought I was a nice guy. And she was married, and I was dating another girl, so there wasn't anything romantic there, but we were like brother and sister. I mean, the two of us just hit it off really good. And I said, well, you should join me on the air. We can have a big time with it. And so we did. We'd have a really, really big time on the air and just complimented each other's humor really, really well. She knew when to gig me, and I could gig her. Nobody got their feelings hurt, and we just had a big time. A lot of it was very off the cuff, and unfortunately, sometimes it sounded like it. Well, we used to have a fellow that worked for us named Jesse Stitcher. Jesse went to school here at Cave City. Jesse had a documentary done on his life. You can look it up. It's a really cool documentary called Half Man, Full Life. Jesse was born without legs, and so he walks on his hands. Mm-hmm. Well, Jesse had come by to visit me one morning on the radio show. And we were live on the air, and Karen said, I'm going to go outside and get, back then they didn't allow us to have soda pop machines in the building, so she had to go outside on the front porch to go to the soda pop machine. So I'm going to go out there and get me a Diet Coke. I'll be back in a minute. I thought, okay, we'll go. I didn't know Jesse had stopped by that morning. Well, I'm on the air. I just closed the mic, and I hear the most blood-curdling scream. I was just like, holy moly. I throw the headphones down, I run out front, and Karen's standing there with her face in her hands, and she's just crying. Front door's open, and there's Jesse. No legs, right there in front of the door. Looks like he's sticking up out of the sidewalk. And he's like all red-faced. He goes, I think I scared her. She went and opened up the door, didn't know he was there. He had just gotten ready to knock. She went and opened up the door, and there he is. Right there. She just screamed, scared her. And I had so much fun picking at her for a week or two after that. I said, don't go to the door. Oh, she felt horrible, I mean, she apologized too, but he said, don't worry about it. He said, it's happened before, but he said, I wasn't expecting it this time either. Usually he said, I do it on purpose to mess with people. So, he was really cool. But we had a lot of fun like that too. One time, morning show partner of mine, probably the one that most folks remember, Brian Andrews, we were out on a live remote at one of the car dealerships in Batesville, and we're talking on the air when this car pulls up, comes to a screeching halt, and we're making a deal out of it, like, oh, somebody's here to get a great bargain. This guy jumps out of the car, this young man that we've run across before at different remotes. He's one of those.
You do have your regulars.
He's one of those local regulars that just shows up, and they'll hang around for a while because they want to bless you with their presence. And he runs right up, and he has this vial in his hand and just sticks it right in Brian's face. And he goes...
While you're on air.
While we're on air.
Yeah.
Live, he goes, look at my gallstones. Brian almost threw up. I mean, he was just like, I just couldn't gather myself. And Brian was losing it. And that guy's like, what? It's real. Just crazy stuff like that. Had to go down to Searcy one time at one of the manufactured home dealers down there. Well, they had set up inside of this one home. They wanted us to come inside and broadcast from. Well, they didn't have any electrical outlets that were working in the living room area that they wanted us to set up in. I said, well, guys, I got to have electricity.
Yeah, small issue.
Yeah, so they said, there's some electricity here in the kitchen area. So I go in, I hook up, I'm sitting down there at the kitchen table having to do my, remote broadcast from the kitchen table inside of this mobile home. Well, I mean, I thought everything, went fine, until Monday morning when the sales lady called me. The client was thoroughly dissatisfied because I stayed hidden in the kitchen. I said there was no power anywhere else. I had to be in the kitchen or there was no remote. Well, you couldn't have walked out. No, my mic cord is like 5 feet long. I was on the far side of the kitchen, We had people come in and visit with them and everything, but that client just could not be satisfied. They were just absolutely upset,
Sometimes you run into that.
Yeah, so that was probably the most, that was the most disappointing one, I guess, when that happened, because we just couldn't make that person happy for nothing. Even though we had several people come in asking where I was, come looking for me, registered for their giveaway and everything.
We're visiting with Ben Johnson on this edition of Home Folks, and making it happen are Home Folks partners like Cooper's Hawk and the Hawk's Nest Grill in Melbourne, ranked 25th nationwide. That's nationwide when it comes to favorite public golf courses. Cooper's Hawk, come and play. Come and stay. Future Fuel Chemical Company in Batesville, leading the way when it comes to the manufacture of specialty chemicals and biofuels. Izard County Abstract, with an office full of names you know and trust, serving you since 1954. Visiting with Ben Johnson here on this edition of Home Folks. Part of the radio gig, especially here locally, is whenever it's a fair season or festival season, these country artists will come to town.
Oh, yeah.
And oftentimes you get to interview these artists, whether it's in person or over the phone. You get to intro these artists. Any memorable stories from interactions with artists, whether good or bad, any disasters or anything really cool that you can think of?
I don't think I had anything really bad happen. There was always some fun stuff. Mark Colley comes to mind. Mark Colley, I thought the world of his music. I really enjoyed him when he was really, really popular there for a long time. He's also an actor. He would always appear in all sorts. He came to the Independence County Fair one time, and we used to have a house trailer set up right at the front gate so we could have the air conditioning and the comfort and just have a home atmosphere and bring people in And when the celebrities would come and we'd interview them, we could sit down at a couch or a kitchen table and, make them comfortable. Mark Colley come over, and he was interviewing with us, and he said, hey, that TV and VCR over there works? I said, yeah, it sure works. He said, I'll be back. So he leaves, goes to his bus, he comes back, and he's got a VHS tape. He had just finished filming a demo movie trying to get the role to play Johnny Cash in a biography movie that he was trying to pitch. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Cash's history when it comes to that famous interview of his with Rolling Stone, where the interviewer was trying to carry on an interview while Cash was digging through the couch cushions and stuff for pills. Well, that is the moment that Mark Colley chose to dramatize. It was absolutely a fantastic little movie. He looked like Johnny Cash from the late 60s. That whole era there where he was pretty gaunt about when he was taking pills and everything, and the drugs about did him in. And that whole thing they had dramatized with him trying to do that interview while he was looking everywhere for pills all over the room. Wow. And it was absolutely fantastic. Well, as we know, he didn't get the job. But it wasn't because he didn't turn in a great film. He said he even got to show it to Johnny. He said who teared up watching it because it brought back so many memories. And he said didn't realize how bad it really looked until he saw it dramatized,
Wow.
So he was really honored that at least he got to see it, and he wanted to show it to us. I've been to his website. He doesn't have it put up anywhere. You can't find it anywhere, so I've never gotten to see it again. I would really love to see it again because I think it would be great because it was really cool. But I thought Mark Colley, he should have been able to do that movie because he would have been. He looked like him. He sounded like him. He was great. You ever see the movie The Punisher?
Yeah.
Well, Mark Colley was in that movie. He played what was the name of that character? Heck Ramsey was, I think, is what the name, something like that. Anyway, he was an assassin there to kill, and so he sings this song that he said he wrote for the guy, Frank Castle, before he was going to kill him. That was him doing his Johnny Cash, when he, the whole look and everything, So I thought, well, I got to see a little bit of that movie there. I mean, that was a lot of what he did there. So that was pretty cool.
So that would have been, though, before Walk the Line.
Oh, yeah, well before.
Joaquin Phoenix. So well before that. Yeah. But I was thinking.
Yeah, it was the early 90s, I think it was.
All due respect to Joaquin, I think Mark would have nailed that.
Oh, yeah, I know he would have because I saw him do it.
Like you say, not only the look, but the mannerism.
Right, yeah, he had it down.
Coming up, lots more with our very special guest, Ben Johnson, when Home Folks Visit 22 continues. Home Folks wouldn't be happening without the fantastic support of partners like Farm Bureau Insurance of Fulton County and Izard County. Agency Manager Philip Steed works alongside agents Jesse Whitaker, Ross Carter, and Seth Godwin. For all your insurance needs, call Farm Bureau 870-895-3180. That's 870-895-3180. Home Folks also made possible by First Name Basis Home Care, elevating in-home care with offices in Melbourne, Mountain View, and Mountain Home as well. And online at afirstnamebasis.com. That's afirstnamebasis.com. Also, thank you to Ozarka College, changing lives and communities for over 50 years now, with campus locations in Melbourne, Mountain View, and Ash Flat, and also online courses available. Get details at ozarka.edu. That's ozarka.edu. Let's dive back into some super neat stories from a super neat guy. Ben Johnson, our special guest here on Home Folks Visit 22. Any awkward moments doing an artist intro? Or did that...
There have been a couple of 3 times.
Usually go to according to plan.
All of us on-air radio people are supposed to be, hey, cool as cucumbers, don't mind standing up there on the stage in front of a microphone.
It's different, though,
with
isn't
a
it?
spotlight hitting you right in the face.
Exactly, when there's people involved.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I always found that I could say any goofy thing that the FCC would allow if I was just talking into this mic in a studio like this. But you get me at a fair.
Yep.
Or speaking before a group, or just doing a tour or something, I mean, I get the palm sweats.
85% of Americans, according to a recent study that I just read the other day, 85% of us would rather die than speak publicly. That's exactly what that survey said. 75% of those people were more worried about how they would die than dying, but I digress. The 85% of the people out there think that public speaking is worse than dying. So when you get us, who are normally used to speaking a bit publicly with a microphone, in front of people in a spotlight, and you're getting ready to introduce some big act, and you're like, don't mess this up, don't mess this up, don't mess this up. The pressure really hits you. So the first few times that I did it, I'd forget to say something or move too quick or whatever. But after doing it several times over the years, I got used to it to where it wasn't such a big thing for me, and it didn't bother me too much. There was a night where I was as nervous as all get out, and that was when Merle Haggard came to Melbourne.
Oh my goodness!
And the first time that he performed over there at the John E. Miller Complex. And we were the host station, and that night we had some winners that were supposed to go back and meet him. He was going to be gracious and sit there at the steps of his bus and sign autographs and visit with people. He was Merle Haggard. He didn't have to do that, but he did it because he wanted to. And so I wasn't going to be, that guy and step up in front of everybody. I waited back to the end of the line, so when everybody had gotten theirs, to walk up to him. Of course, that also meant I had time to sit there and stare and go, that's Merle Haggard, sitting there on the steps here in Melbourne, Arkansas, sitting on steps of his bus. And so it was beginning to mess with me a little bit, and I'm sitting here practicing in my head, what am I going to say, what am I going to say? And so I had a ball cap to get him to sign, my old radio station ball cap, and so I took it up to him, and nobody else, I was the very last person. And I walked up and I stuck my hand out, and I said, Mr. Haggard, thank you for doing this tonight. I said, I am one of your biggest fans. I know you probably hear that a lot, but I said I've always been a big fan of yours. And I said, man, it's a pleasure to get to meet you. He said, well, thanks, man. He said, same here. He said, I appreciate you playing my music. And he signs my hat. Now, right before he said, thanks, man, I appreciate that, his eyes got real big when he looked at me. It's kind of like, what? What did I hear? And I thought, well, he must have been, like, really impressed with what I said or something. I'm sitting here thinking, hey, I really knocked this out of the park. Well, after he signs my hat, three or four more people come up, in line to get an autograph. So I walk off. Now, my buddy, Bobby Stapleton, is there for the local newspaper, and he was taking pictures. And he's got this Cheshire cat grin on his face. And I walked up to him, and I said, what are you smiling about? He said, did you even realize what you said to him? No, I said to him, I've always been a big fan of yours. He said, no, that's not what you said. I said, what did I say? He said, you looked at Merle Haggard and said, you've always been a big fan of mine. Can I get you to sign this hat? I did not. He said, you did too. That's why he looked at you like you was crazy. He saw the whole thing, and I was like, no. I knew at that moment what it felt like to be Pac-Man at the end of his run. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I did not do that. Well, I at least wanted to turn around and apologize. By that time, last autograph, he'd shut the doors, got up on the bus. I was like, oh, my gosh. So I had to live with that.
Safe to say that might have been the artist you were in most awe of that you ever ran across?
There have been a few. My very first interview of a famous country singer ever was with Waylon Jennings.
Well, what a way to start.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Because he's not always had the reputation for being interview friendly. So
right.
You're kind of being thrown into the fire there.
He was going to appear at Heber Springs. Mm-hmm. They tried that little fun park thing over there at Heber Springs several years back. He was going to be there one month. The next month was going to be Willie Nelson. Well, in between the time that they had scheduled these concerts, the Highwaymen in 91 were starting a new tour, and they were starting it in Little Rock as a benefit for the Arkansas farmers who had dealt with the drought. Mm-hmm. Well, now, Arkansas folks, we have to be, money conscious, right? You could spend whatever it was, $25 or so to see Waylon, $25 to see Willie those 2 months. Or you could wait and spend $25 and see Waylon, Willie, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson all together in one show. Well, as you can imagine, the Heber Springs tickets started to drop off. The sales did. So they talked Waylon into doing some radio interviews to help promote the thing. So I get to talking to Waylon in that interview, and my legs were shaking. And I was sitting down.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. And so I sat there and got to visiting with him. I was determined not to visit with him about the same old stuff. So I talked to him about a whole bunch of stuff that he had produced and songs that he had written. And one of my absolute most favorite albums was a Hank Williams Jr. album that he produced and sang backup and stuff on, right? And so we even talked about that album for a while. So you could tell that he was really relaxing. He was feeling, more at ease. He wasn't getting all these, crazy kind of questions. And then I went and asked him about the ticket sales with the Highwayman show. And then Waylon showed up.
Waylon in the house.
He was like, well, I don't know about all that. Here's what you're going to get with us. I mean, it just got real stern, and I thought, I screwed it up. Fortunately, I was able to kind of straighten it up a little bit towards the end of the interview, but I went back and listened to that interview 3 or 4 times. You could hear. It's just the vitriol. He was boom. Yeah. Here's what they're going to get with my show. They're not going to get all the songs that the Highwayman shows are going to. They need to come see, Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Understood. Moving right along.
Moving right along is exactly right.
The guy walked out on Tom Snyder, and if he can do that, then
he ain't no problem walking out on me. You don't even know who I am. Won't ever see me again. I don't even know you well enough to miss you when you're gone.
Great stuff here with Ben Johnson visiting with us on this special edition of Home Folks. If you like what you're hearing, and I know you do, tell our Home Folks partners about it, okay? Sky Clark at Southern Tire Mart, 1100 North St. Louis Street in Batesville. For passenger tires, commercial truck tires, construction equipment tires, and more, they keep America rolling at Southern Tire Mart. Also, Sanders Lee White Investments, offering fast cash for your land, home property, personal property, and estates. Call 870-291-7110. White River Health in 2026, celebrating 50 years since the opening of White River Medical Center in Batesville. To find the clinic location nearest you, go to whiteriverhealth.org. That's whiteriverhealth.org. White River Health, caring beyond health care. Special guest on this edition of Home Folks is Mr. Ben Johnson. We touched on it a little bit earlier. The technology changes that you've seen, I've seen as well to a certain degree in our radio career is nothing short of astonishing, considering where we started from, late 70s, early 80s, to where we are now. I remember when I was first breaking into the business, queuing up the record was a very special skill that you would work on and you would hone. And just about the time I was able to make the transition so smooth, and I was so proud of myself, my manager comes in, we're converting everything to CDs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I loved slip queuing.
I know you've lived that as well.
Yeah, I sure did. Back timing. You got to use those math skills and work out the timing on the clock because you had to match the network at 5 or 10 seconds till the top of the hour, depending on the length of your ID. And, of course, timing out the songs and learning the library well enough to know when I needed a 2-minute and 38-second song or a 3-minute and 45-second song. I knew where to grab. I knew where to go. I had a section with all those different kinds of times that I knew I could get this one. I could slip cue it, talk just this much, time it out. It's just a great sense of accomplishment. You felt super powerful.
And then technology comes along
and messed it all up.
Starts to babysit us all of a sudden. Where are we going to be in 40 more years with this thing?
Yeah, technology's made it so easy even a caveman could do it.
Sounds like you've said that before here.
Time or two.
Yeah, exactly. That needs to be on some imaging here on Caveman Radio. Well, my wife has told me this all my life, my radio habit. She says, someday you're going to have to get a real job.
Yeah.
And you made the decision to go into the world of education and come home to Cave City High School and take over a program known as Skills USA as far as managing things here at the radio station and instructing kids on proper ways to do radio, speaking skills, journalism skills. Talk about how that transition took place as far as I know you've been friends for a long time with the superintendent here, Stephen Green.
Yeah, all my life pretty much.
Yeah, I've known him since you were kids. So that had to feel like a natural fit at that point in your life.
Well, Steve and I grew up around each other at Sydney. And we went to school together. We graduated together. And he told me, a long time ago, he said that my plan is to get to be superintendent, and I hope to bring you on as my radio teacher someday. And I'm like, Right, Steve, you
Yeah.
bet. Well, he became superintendent, and he finally got me to come on as radio teacher. And I've been doing it for 20 years now and enjoying the heck out of it. It's a different day every day with high school kids, I'm telling you. As you can hear them now out there, wild as a buck.
That's a joyful noise, though. We
Yeah,
like
it is.
that.
Yeah, you don't want screaming and yelling and gunfire. That's the opposite of what you need. But it was amazing. He called me and let me know that the opportunity was there. And I had been at KWOZ for, 23, 24 years, something like that. And I was just thinking, I really felt like I could use a change. And I thought, going back to at that time, it was KZIG. Going back to the high school station and maybe taking on a teaching career would be a lot of fun, a great new adventure, and it would help me build some retirement because as much as I love radio, you didn't build retirement with a lot of radio stations.
Exactly.
And I'm sitting here going, at this time I was knocking on 40. So I'm sitting here going, I got to start thinking a little bit about that. So I said, all right, I'll think about it. And he said, you're sure? I said, yeah, I'll think about it. Well, I'm watching Monday Night Football one night. And he told me, he said, it's going to be a couple of years before we could bring you on because he said they're putting in the new high school. And so I'm laying at the house watching Monday Night Football, and I get a phone call, and Steve calls me, and he says, hey, man, you're hired. You got to let them know tomorrow that you're going to leave the radio station. I said, wait, what?
Tomorrow?
Yeah, he went ahead and applied for me. And they had, I guess, a couple other folks that were thinking about it, and they ran it up the flagpole and decided they wanted me to come do the thing. And I said, I've got to go in tomorrow and tell. He said, yeah. He said, you're going to have to because he said the folks from the paper were there, and that'll be in the paper tomorrow. No pressure.
Your radio station might be reporting on it tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had to go and let everybody know the next day that, well, guess what? I got a new job.
Awkward.
Yeah, it was a little bit, but gosh, what a great adventure it has been. It's been so much fun. I never was a club guy. I mean, I didn't even join the Star Trek fan club, and I love Star Trek. But when I got here, I found out I was going to have to run. I was calling it a club at the time, but they don't like it to be called a club. It's an organization, Skills USA. I'd never heard of it, but it's been around since 1965. And it was originally called VICA, Vocational Industrial Clubs of America. Around 2004, they added the Skills USA VICA thing. 2002, I think it was Skills USA VICA. And then in 4, it just went all Skills USA. And it is basically the FFA for career technical education. So if there's a career tech ed class in your school or college, Skills USA represents that. And it's a requirement in the state of Arkansas that you be a part of the Skills USA organization if you have a career tech ed class, which radio is career tech. Anything that teaches you about how to do a job. So you've got the welding and the nursing and the law enforcement, and of course here we have radio and TV that we do at Cave City, internet, all that other stuff. I mean, it's if it's career tech, they work with it. So I had to learn all about Skills USA, and under the auspices of Mr. Dave Fisher, absolutely wonderful mentor. Dave is just absolutely incredible. And miss him terribly. We lost him here this past fall, and he took me under his wing in 2005 and taught me the ropes and helped lead me, how to do this. So super patient. Dave was so incredibly patient because I'm a blockhead, and so he could have told me how to do something, and then I'd say the next day, now how do I do this again? And just as patient as the first time. Well, Ben, here's how you do this. And just nice, smooth voice, and always so friendly and patient. And never once did he yell at me when he had the right to at times. So we got in here and learned about Skills USA, and the thing that I liked about it is it helps me provide a capper for our school year for the career tech ed kids. Got a lot of students that don't do sports in high school, and everything around high school tends to be geared towards sports. Sure. All your ball games and all that sort of stuff. You've got all your tournaments and your championships and everything. Well, Skills USA also offers a state championship, which becomes a national championship for the gold medalist. But a state championship allows us the opportunity to train kids over the course of the year and then take them to Hot Springs for 3 days, and they compete against students in similar programs from around the state, and they can win medals and prizes and scholarships. And that makes it all worth it right there. So my first several years of going, our first 10, 12 years, I mean, Cave City would go down there and dominate at Skills USA. I mean, we would take 40, 50 kids and come back with half as many medals, winning in, close to a dozen different competitions. And so it was just absolutely jaw-dropping for me because I didn't have any idea that I could train kids to do something like that, right? But I've had lots and lots and lots of great memories with students around here and going on these trips and spending those 3 days in Hot Springs and then watching them come back with their faces just beaming when they get any kind of medal, but especially a gold medal. And then over the years, up until about 4 years ago or so, we were going to nationals every summer with somebody. We were taking somebody as a gold medalist, and so we got to go to Kansas City for a week, and we got to go to Louisville, Kentucky for a week, and we got to go to Atlanta, Georgia for a week because they'd move it, of course. And it's extremely difficult to medal at nationals, because, I mean, you've got people from every state competing in all these competitions,
Certainly,
right?
Yeah.
So for little old 3A Cave City to go to a national competition and even hope to medal is, it's almost unthinkable. But we've done it 4 times. I've had teams that have gone to nationals, and I've gotten 2 silver and 2 bronze broadcast teams. 3 of them were radio, 1 was television. I've had these kids come away just just to see the joy on their faces and how I did it, It'll get you. It'll get you in the feels. And
Goodness, yes.
It's absolutely stunning, and it's so much fun, and it's a lot of hard work, though, a lot of hard work. And sometimes dealing with temperamental teenagers can make it testy, but you pays your quarter, you takes your chances, right?
Exactly. You need only to come into this facility and see all the awards. I don't think you have enough wall space for all the awards.
And we don't
here.
have enough, like the flags out there. They just only started making those in 2004.
I mean
2014. We've got them all the way back to 2005.
As Duke is in men's basketball, Cave City is in Skills USA. I mean, they have that reputation. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, it's all about the kids.
Yeah.
And it is to a certain degree, but they got to have guidance. They got to have a teacher. And they got to have an encourager. Hats off to you for the job
I get to be their
done.
cheerleader.
And I would imagine maybe the most rewarding part of this is seeing these kids go on in whatever vocation they choose,
right.
Succeed, and come back and say, hey, Mr. Johnson, this, that, the other, you taught me in Skills USA, or I picked up in Skills
right.
USA, gave me the confidence to
right.
go on in my career and do these things, whatever it might be.
That has been a blessing that has happened to me time and again, where I have run across youngins who have come back and told me that, and that makes it all worth it. I mean, you're just sitting there going, wow, I mean, I've made that kind of an impact on another person's life just for teaching them how to talk on the radio, starting them off with tongue twisters and then getting them on,
Sure.
Learning how to speak clearly and articulate their mouths and project their voices and just sort of kind of go from there. It's absolutely incredible. It's a big joy. And, I got pulled into teaching, not knowing what it was that was ahead of me. But I have learned since then that teaching should be a calling. For most of you getting into education, it's got to be a calling because you're going to put in more time. You're going to put in more effort than you possibly thought even existed.
Sure.
And you're going to sacrifice a lot. But the success of your students is the biggest payoff, more than the paycheck or anything else. There's not a whole lot of glory to it, really. But it's a personal realization that you have affected someone else's lives positively. And I've had that happen several times. They'll contact me over the internet. I'll run across them, here or there. My wife works with some people who were former students of mine, and they've told her how much, I was their favorite teacher. I was the class that made them look forward to coming to school every day, that kind of stuff. And that warms you up big time on the inside. It sure does. And so it's just been an absolute blessing all on its own to be able to experience that. I never had any idea that would even be part of it until it happened the first time. And then after that, it was just kind of like, oh wow. So it's pretty cool.
What a pleasure to visit with Ben Johnson on this edition of Home Folks and making it happen. Our friends at Campbell's Auto Sales, 1100 East Main in Melbourne. For your next pre-owned ride, bad boy mower, ATV, trailer, or laser wash car wash, it's Campbell's Auto Sales. Also thanks to Brandy and her crew at Remax Edge Realty in Melbourne, 1188 East Main Street, helping buyers and sellers achieve their dreams. Your hometown agents, Remax Edge Realty in Melbourne, 870-916-2008. Also, thank you to Pizza Pro Depot of Melbourne, the official pizza of Home Folks and Ken Loggins Online, located at 2534 East Main, next to Triple M Discount, 870-916-5333, 870-916-5333. Ben, as we head down the home stretch on these visits, I always like to ask about life advice, things you've picked up during your career, whether it's in radio or in education, the best advice you could think of to pass along to, who knows, students in the next room or anybody else that right now might need a little bit of guidance. What pops into your head?
Well, dealing with high school kids, there's always lots of drama. And you always try to get them to be mindful of other people. The shoes that other people are wearing, the old walk a mile in their shoes kind of thing. You try to encourage youngsters to think about things from somebody else's perspective. You need to understand there's another side to that. And if we all kind of operate that way, I think, and I have times remembering that myself, and I always thankfully have my wife, Tina, to remind me. And she loves to do that, and we try to think of it as, well, bless their hearts, and just kind of go from there with that. As far as radio's concerned, there used to be a fella that you remember the old satellite networks that they used to populate radio stations with. They'd feed the same programming to lots of radio stations, and you'd put in your own local IDs to make it sound like those folks were from the local area. There was a satellite network when I worked at Batesville that we used to carry called Coast to Coast, and their afternoon jock, the name he used on the air was Jim Beadle. And Jim was very fun. He was upbeat. He was always telling funny stories, did funny crime stories, things like that. It's a lot of the same kind of things that I do to this day, because he was kind of the model for, some of the stuff that I did and still do actually on the Bull 105.7 in the afternoons. I'd call him and I'd talk to him every now and again, because I'm doing this morning show on this little radio station in Batesville, Arkansas, and I'm trying to figure my way around. I thought, hey, maybe a good idea to maybe ask him a thing or two. And so he told me the most important things to remember is how you're going to get into your bit, and the most important thing after that is how you're going to get out of it. Figure out how you're going to get out of it before you get into it, and then that way you'll know where you're going. You always have a roadmap. And he said, be as concise as you can, be sharp as you can with it, and remember, a moving target is hard to hit. So I always remembered that. So when I do my bit, I'll go to a commercial break. Just boom, don't linger. Try to just keep moving and going and going. That'll teach people to pay more attention to you. They'll start, what did he say? I missed it. Well, then they'll start listening to you closer after that, and that's worked pretty well for me over the years. Certainly I've had a lot of people tell me that. That, I knew not to listen. I had to pay attention to get what you were saying.
Sure.
So that's a strength, I think.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Let's double back to our initial question. You might recall, if there's one moment in Ben Johnson's radio career, you could go back, live it again because it was so much fun, or maybe change something about it because it wasn't that much fun. What pops into your head?
I would want to go back to that moment with Merle Haggard. And fix what I said to him so that he wouldn't have looked at me like I was crazy as a Bessie bug.
Now, Merle probably thought about that for maybe 5 seconds.
Right.
He was on to other Merle Haggard things.
It probably didn't last more than 5 seconds for him, but it's lasted 20-some-odd years for me. So it would be more for me than it would be for him.
Great stuff, Ben. Like I said, thank you so much. By the way, Ben, just last year, and I know he's not going to toot his own horn about this, but he was inducted into the Skills USA Hall of Fame. So congratulations on that honor. Great to be talking to a bona fide Hall of Famer here.
Lifetime Achievement Award and an honorary lifetime member is what they did to me. So
can't kick you out.
Can't
no matter
kick
what
me out.
you
No,
do, they're stuck with you.
I'm done. Even if they find out about that time in Georgia, I'm safe.
Find out what you said to Merle Haggard. Ben, once again, thank you for your friendship over the years, and thank you so much for being on Home Folks. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Ken, for inviting me. This has been a ball. I've enjoyed the heck out of it.
Hall of Famer Ben Johnson, our very special guest here on Home Folks. Don't forget, while you're here, follow the Facebook page. Also subscribe at the YouTube channel here, Ken Loggins Online on YouTube. That's Ken Loggins Online here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Home Folks. For Ben Johnson, I'm Ken Loggins. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for listening.